This is Defiance Daily Dispatches for the Defiant. I'm going to tell you what, folks, Donald Trump is going to need a support group after what we do to him at this organization, because we are going to continue to be unrelenting in highlighting his abuses of power to the point that there's going to be a million reasons for the man to be investigated for the rest of his days. And today is another one of those days where we're going to highlight the different things he has done that are corrupt and that are going to follow him into the post-presidency if he makes it into the post-presidency. And the theme today is that right now, Donald Trump appears to be the biggest loser. He keeps losing one case after another because the things he's doing are illegal. The things he's doing are worthy of investigation and dismissal by the courts. Now, I will tell you this, we usually wait until Fridays to do the MAGA losses of the week, but today is Tuesday, and there's already so many piling up that we have to talk about them. Donald Trump has already lost in the courts this week. He's lost within his own party, but the fight is still ahead. There's still a lot more to do because this guy has got 2 more years left in office, and he appears, despite all of those losses, all of those potential future investigations, to be hellbent on breaking the law. So we're going to talk about that today. We've got a special guest. Beto O'Rourke is with us. We're going to talk about what Trump's corruption means, including in the state of Texas, as we head toward the midterm elections. Now, before we jump into today's program, you often hear people say this on social media, but I'm going to say it today. Please like this video. Please share this video. Please subscribe to Defiance.org on social media channels. If there's a little heart button, press that button. If there's a little thumbs up, press that thumbs up. When you hear social media influencers talk about that, they just want to grow their following. When we tell you to like, share, and subscribe, it's because we want you to save your democracy. And you doing that helps share this information out to more people. It's the least you can do to help restore the rule of law. And if you're listening to us on your favorite podcast channel, Apple, Spotify, please leave a review. And feel free to comment about my Defiance.org co-founder, Xander Schultz, his appearance. Anything that you want to say about Xander that's derisive is totally welcome in those comments. Oh, here he is. Here he is.
Wow, so I've been taking some notes since you've been talking here. I've got so far fascism, bad, defiance, good. Am I following along?
That's about right.
Okay, fascism, bad, defiance,
and if people,
good.
Xander, if people forget, the easiest way for them to find us, well, the easiest way is Defiance.org. But you can also go to orangemanbad.org. Is that right?
You can go to Orange Man. If you are thinking to yourself when you're watching this guy speak, that Orange Man is bad, just go to orangemanbad.org. And it'll
orangemanbad.org.
Well, we're really repping the swag today. No one that's watching the live stream is confused at who they're listening to. We got
our hands. We got our hats. But I'm going to tell you candidly, folks, we ain't in this for the clicks. We're in this for the Constitution. All right. And we hope that you are too. And Xander, I got to tell you, this is a week that in some ways, the week's not over, is a very good week for the U.S. Constitution and a very bad week for the biggest loser, Donald Trump. And unfortunately for him, there's already been a lot by the end of the day this Tuesday that has stacked up against him. The administration, of course, has spent months promising things like an election crackdown. But specifically, Xander, I want to hone in on that because the last few days on that front have been one court loss after another. So I'm going to start us off in Maryland. And Baltimore's WJZ has the story. Take a listen.
Welcome back. The Trump administration cannot have access to Maryland's voter rolls. A federal district court judge told the Department of Justice the court will not interpret federal voting law, quote, contrary to its text, simply because of an office of the party advancing the interpretation has adopted it, unquote. The Department of Justice sued Maryland and other states for not turning over private voter rolls. Maryland State Board of Election officials say the security and privacy of voter information remains a top priority and will be protected.
Okay, so Xander, this was not some one-off ruling, by the way. According to our friends over at Democracy Docket, run by the great Mark Elias, this was the 9th time that a court has ruled against the administration's effort to obtain voter files from states around the country. 9 losses, 0 wins. Xander, doesn't exactly sound to me like an administration that is complying with the law. It sounds like an administration that's doing a snatch and grab operation to steal voter information that doesn't belong to the federal government.
Yeah, you know what would be great? That a company does rulings. Oh no, it's broken. That would be so symbolic if my impeachment alert was broken. I have actually mentioned that it's broken because after losing all these lawsuits, you would hope a functional Congress would say it appears our president is trying to go beyond his powers and compromise our democracy. Just another reason why we have to win these midterms and get a Congress in place that is willing to hold him accountable, because the courts are doing their job for the most part. The Supreme Court's, been a bit iffy at times, but the lower courts are doing their job in telling the federal executive branch what they can't do. But we need a Congress that can drop the hammer on an executive branch when it is so clearly aggressively going beyond its powers to compromise our democracy.
When we were talking about this with our producer, she had a great line. She said, look, 9 losses, 0 wins. These guys should get a punch card or something at DOJ. 1 more loss and they get a free latte or something
That's
like that.
That's a great line. That was Mercedes. That's a good one.
That was Mercedes.
Yeah. It's still, they're still off to a better start than them challenging the 2020 results, which I think they're like 0-63 on or something like that.
Oh, it's got to be more than that. It's got to be more than that.
I'll look that up real quick.
Yeah,
while you hit the next story.
Maybe that's about right. But it doesn't stop there, my buddy, because one of the biggest blows to Donald Trump's election crackdown was served up yesterday. If you're not following along, let me give you some background. As we know, the administration has been trying to create this sort of 1984 style voter data system, right? By compiling America's personal information to check for their eligibility to vote.
You'll get it. Keep it up.
Yeah,
you got it.
Through the revamping of what's known as the SAVE database. And just to be clear with everyone, this is not a federal government function. The states administer our voter laws, right? The states administer voting in this country, but the Trump administration has been trying in a lot of different ways to take over voting. This is unconstitutional, right? And we're just scratching the tip of the iceberg right now. There is going to be a big, sweeping, sprawling investigation after this administration or after Democrats retake Congress into all the ways Donald Trump has subverted the Constitution when it comes to voting. But I digress. Originally, the system was designed to verify, the SAVE system, it was designed to verify if someone's immigration status was legitimate or not so that they got certain government benefits. This was a system that was administered through the department that I used to help run, the Department of Homeland Security. So a way that employers and others could check and say, hey, is this person in the country legally? Hey, can this person receive benefits? Now, the administration has overhauled that system so that states can run entire voter rolls through it in bulk for the first time, and they've connected it to Social Security records. Well, yesterday, a federal judge ruled that this entire overhaul was illegal. In a 75-page opinion, the judge wrote that federal agencies had, quote, haphazardly combined and repurposed the private information of millions of Americans, including citizenship data that they knew to be unreliable. Now, this is largely in part because as 60 million voter records were being added to the system by the Trump administration last year, it was found to be flagging American citizens, particularly naturalized citizens, and expunging them from the voter rolls. Xander, this is remarkable for another reason. I know that some people hear immigration and they think, well, I'm not here illegally, so I'm going to tune out because this isn't my problem. I'm going to tell you why it's your problem. Because any massive database that the Department of Homeland Security runs can be manipulated. All it takes is them to upload the name Xander Schultz into that database or Miles Taylor. So when the states come back and they check and they say, hey, who's allowed to vote? Boop, it bounces off of that and kicks the name out of the approved voter list. This is extremely dangerous. This is what you might call fascism, my friends. And Xander, I gotta say, it has been thrilling to watch one after the other as courts have struck this down and made very clear that these actions are not legal.
Yeah, or worse, Miles, they could mark you dead. Remember that story we covered on that woman that was marked dead and there was no recourse. She spent a half year trying to be marked alive again so she could have a lot of her benefits restored and so she could vote again. I think the woman passed away actually before she was even able to succeed. Yeah, like a database that can be manipulated like this, not good. Triggering, Miles' hair is standing on end, triggering all of his libertarian sensibilities of a database, that's being created like this. Miles, I wonder as a project, we should compile these judge statements because they're so anonymous. Oh, now it's my turn.
Neither of us can talk today.
I gave up on it. They're odd and much less boring than your average statement from a judge when they're making a ruling. These are like tongue lashings. Yes. Judges are constantly, and we've got to compile them almost because it just puts into a stark picture how absurd these court cases are. They're not just losing them. Judges are basically often saying, what the fuck is this case? What are you guys even trying to claim here? What are you doing? This is obviously illegal. And I think that would be a compelling project to compile kind of the best of those hits.
Yeah, I got to tell you, if you're a layman out there and you just casually consume this content about the orange man who's torching our democracy and what folks are doing about it, I will underscore what Xander just said. The tongue lashing from the justice system against this administration, against the court system, has been unlike anything that we have ever seen, maybe in all of American history and not just modern American history. I mean, one after another, every week there is a ruling that cuts to whether the administration is operating according to the Constitution or not. Now, look, every administration gets sued and they get told you're not implementing the law the right way, or this thing's wrong, or you failed to follow this rule. That's not what these rulings are. These rulings are massive, sweeping rulings about the nature of executive power. They are remarkable. We've not lived through anything like this. No living, breathing American has lived through anything like this. This administration is on a crime spree, but that crime spree keeps getting disrupted, and the losses don't stop there, Xander. They don't stop with those cases we already mentioned. This next one's near and dear to Defiance.org. We're going to go to Minnesota with this story.
Judge today ruling multiple leaders, including the governor and attorney general, were the targets of a criminal investigation over their opposition to Operation Metro Surge. Our chief political reporter, Tom Hauser, is live at the Capitol right now with more on the impact of this ruling, Tom.
The court ruling essentially says political opposition to Operation Metro Surge is not a crime. The U.S. Justice Department suffering a stinging defeat in federal court over efforts to indict several Minnesota state and city leaders over their opposition to the immigration enforcement operation last winter. Subpoenas aimed at Governor Tim Walz, Attorney General Keith Ellison, and the mayors of St. Paul and Minneapolis were all quashed by a federal judge.
Dissent is not criminal. Criticism of a government is not a crime.
Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey hailed the ruling, which said, in part, initiating a criminal investigation in order to harass political opponents is a blatantly unlawful and unethical use of the grand jury process.
And he is right, Xander. It is all of those things. Our friend Jacob Fry, who, by the way, we should have back on this program, putting that
Yeah.
out into the ether for you and me and Mercedes to reach
Should
back
probably
out.
send an email instead of put it in the ether if we want to make it happen.
I like to think that during this program, when I put
That
things
everyone's
into the ether,
listening.
there's this like little Icelandic troll that's like jotting it all down. He'll make sure that we get it done. So
I'm jotting it down. I'll be your troll. Send
I
Jacob
just
Fry. email.
jotted it down too. It's not like we have a staff of 30 at Defiance.org. There's like a tiny handful of us because we spend your funds on the fight. But that's neither here nor there. I will go back to that a little bit later. This was good news because it was very obvious to anyone, Xander, when the Justice Department started to go after the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, and go after the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Fry, that they were doing this purely as political retaliation. That is what was happening here. They were pretending that the governor and the mayor opposing this immigration blitz was them impeding federal law enforcement, as if the governor and the mayor laid their bodies in front of the cop cars and made it impossible for those cop cars to go make legitimate arrests. A federal judge saw through that and struck that down. And just another reminder to any MAGA person who may have just wandered into this live stream or this podcast and is thinking, it's another liberal activist judge. Let me tell you, 75%, okay, of the conservative appointed judges in this country that have had cases come in front of them about the Trump administration have done what? They've ruled against the Trump administration. It's not just judges appointed by Democratic presidents. It's judges appointed by Republican presidents, including Donald Trump, who continue to say, stop breaking the law, asshole. That's what they keep saying. Forgive my language. That was a
They
reference.
kind of
for
are
anyone who
saying that,
remembers,
though.
to that Jim Carrey movie. Remember that Jim Carrey movie where he was a lawyer?
Liar, liar.
Anyway, we got to get that clip. We got to get that clip. I'm going to send that out into the ether to the little Icelandic troll that keeps our notes. Get the clip of Jim Carrey from
clip.
Liar, Liar. Stop breaking the law. We'll play that every time we have one of these stories. Xander, unfortunately for Donald Trump, it doesn't stop there. I know. We've still got more here.
Let's
California
keep it going.
is joining the Trump Justice Department losing streak party. And they are coming to that party with bells on. A federal judge has dismissed Donald Trump's lawsuit against Los Angeles over its sanctuary city policy, rejecting the administration's argument that the city was somehow interfering with federal immigration enforcement. Again, the argument that perhaps the whole city was laying down in front of one of Trump's cop cars and blocking the officers. The judge found that Los Angeles was simply deciding how to use its own employees and resources. And you know what it chose? It chose not to use those employees and resources for federal immigration activity. Why? Because that's an effing federal function and not a state function. Have you had enough, Xander? Or do you want me to keep going? Because I can keep going.
I've certainly not had enough, man. I'm happy we're doing this work, though. This would be so infuriating if we weren't teamed up doing this and I was reading this news. I'm so happy we're getting wins, but fuck, man. These guys have tried a lot. Sometimes it's a reminder of all the things they have going. Like, these lawsuits weren't even on my radar until you're bringing them up right now, right? They're just doing everything they freaking can to attack our system. Good on the judges again, though. Let's keep going.
Good on the judges. Well, if Stephen Miller is not crying into a pillow, then he will be after this one. I've got to think he has to be.
I like that visual
after all these losses. But if losing in court was not enough, the administration also tried to go after the people reporting on all of its problems. According to the New York Times, the Justice Department issued grand jury subpoenas to reporters at the Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post as part of its hunt for alleged leakers inside the government. Specifically, the administration wanted information related to reporting on internal debates over Iran and U.S. military operations in Venezuela. The idea here was simple: force the journalists who reported those stories to testify and help the government identify their sources. The problem, of course, was the newspapers didn't think that that was very good for journalism and the First Amendment. And so they argued that those subpoenas violated very, very basic press freedoms, the ones delineated in the Bill of Rights. And after they did, the Justice Department quietly took its ball and went home. They withdrew those subpoenas as if no one would notice that they just tried to stomp all over the freedom of the press. Another loss for this administration, Xander, at least for now.
Incredible. Incredible. This reminds me, I've been on this like rewatch of The Sopranos, and like one of the things they do is go to small businesses and say, you really need some security. You should pay us. The Trump administration is just constantly committing crimes and then trying to, say other folks are committing those same crimes on a much smaller scale. If you're looking for a leak, our friend Mr. Trump just linked to that the British Prime Minister was stepping down like the last couple of weeks. He's constantly, his team is constantly leaking sensitive information. We talk about the Signal chat with the Secretary of Defense leaking information. It's so funny. It's almost like they remind themselves what crimes are by committing them. And like, we should go after someone for that. It's such a ridiculous administration. I'm sorry.
Every accusation is an admission. Every accusation is an admission. The things that they go after people for are the things that they are doing. They are the crimes that they are committing. Now, if the first part of today's show, Xander, was about all those losses piling up for Trump in court, this next part is about something he hates even more, which is people on his own side telling him, no, Mr. President. Because in breaking news this afternoon, folks, the United States Senate voted 50-48 to approve a resolution directing Donald Trump to end the war in Iran or to seek congressional authorization to continue it. This, combined with a similar vote already passed by the House, marks the first time since the War Powers Resolution of 1973 that both chambers of Congress have approved a measure directing a president to end an ongoing military conflict. Listen to that, folks. The first time that Congress has ever told the president, stop an ongoing military conflict. We're not going to have it. That is a remarkable rebuke, especially because both chambers are controlled by Trump's own party, controlled by the GOP. 4 Republican senators broke ranks and voted for it, including Rand Paul, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, and Bill Cassidy. We've been saying, Xander, that there is not a resistance in the ranks of House and Senate Republicans. There is a reluctance to support Donald Trump, but that reluctance is getting pretty powerful, my man.
Man. Right when I started the show chastising Congress. Look at them stepping up. I should have read down further in our notes. Look at you guys. Thank you. That's all we want to see. Don't let us be led into endless ridiculous wars that have no goal in the first place. Good on you guys. Sorry for being so hard on you 10 minutes ago.
What I love about a day where Xander hasn't read the news is that, like, I get to see him along for the ride.
Oh, what we say, I'm the layman of the show. This is when I watch the news too, gang. I watch the news via Miles.
It's great. We get to see you find out all the important things that are happening out there and all the ways Donald Trump is getting his ass kicked. And then I get a second dose of delight by seeing the delight on your face, my friend. But it doesn't stop there, Xander, because apparently Senate Republicans had more bad news for him. Tomorrow, Trump is heading to the Senate Republican lunch to try to revive his beloved Save America Act. Remember, this is his super voter suppression bill. The problem is that Republicans are already speaking to the press, and they say they will be there to deliver a reality check to the president. The SAVE Act is never, ever, ever going to pass the United States Senate. As Senator John Cornyn of Texas told members of the press on Monday, quote, "I'm going to be there, front and center. I've been around here long enough and been through enough battles and counted enough votes to know that if it doesn't just magically occur, no matter how much you wish it would happen." In fact, multiple Republican senators are reportedly planning to use the meeting to tell Trump it is time to move on, which is not exactly the reception he was hoping for. But you know, Xander, this is what happens when you go after members of your own party. He went after John Cornyn, didn't back him. What's he got? He's got a John Cornyn that's willing to buck him.
Miles, I'm a couple stories late on this present for you, but I made something for you. Let me see if I can get it on the screen. There he is.
Look,
we're keeping this one. This one's kind of coming back. This is an official Defiance meme.
On bad days, if you need to feel better, just please screenshot this. That was Stephen Miller crying into a pillow. We'll probably put that on T-shirts. Another thing we'll put out into the ether to our Icelandic troll who keeps our notes for the organization. Please make sure we get those T-shirts up in the swag store. All right, Xander. Now, after everything that we've covered tonight, loss after loss after loss after loss, let me just put a little dose of realism here. Sorry to be Debbie Downer. There's a temptation to look at all of these court losses that the president has had. And again, it's only Tuesday, and think that the threat has passed. We are winning in the entirety. Well, the SAVE database got blocked. Yes. DOJ keeps getting rejected by judges. Yes. Trump's election agenda keeps running into the courts and the facts and sometimes even his own party, all of those things. But that's when people get complacent, because while the judges were shutting down parts of Trump's election agenda this week, the administration was also quietly moving forward with other parts of it. According to new court filings, the U.S. Postal Service has already begun laying the groundwork for a new record system tied to Trump's executive order on mail-in voting. In other words, some of those pieces are being stopped, others are being built in real time. And that's why these court victories matter. But they're not the end of the story. And joining us now to talk about that and what voters should be paying attention to heading into the midterms is former Congressman Beto O'Rourke, founder of Powered by the People. Hey, my friend, how are you?
I'm doing okay. Thanks for
having
me on.
It's great to have you on the program. There's a lot going on, and I gotta say, the mail-in ballots thing is truly terrifying to me, and it gets a little bureaucratic for some people. But I think what folks don't realize is that Donald Trump has taken the United States Postal Service and made it like a voting enforcement agency that it was never designed to do. That's clearly an unconstitutional function. And it's barreling forward with this effort, which is going to affect the whole country. It's going to affect states like yours, states like Texas. I want to ask you, heading into the midterms, how big of a worry is this to you?
It's of concern when you put it together with everything that's going on. So, you know, Trump musing to the New York Times earlier this year that perhaps he should have asked the Guard to seize ballot boxes in 2020. The fact that he is calling into question birthright citizenship and therefore your ability to vote in these upcoming midterm elections if you are a U.S. citizen, but your parents were born in another country. The fact that in Texas, they make it already harder to vote or register to vote than in any other state in the union. They've closed down more than 700 polling places since Shelby versus Holder was decided in the fastest growing state in the union. Almost all of those closures have taken place in the fastest growing Black and brown communities. And then I think Minneapolis was but a preview for what we are going to see in October and November. Masked federal agents, plainclothes without warrants or badges, harassing people who come to vote, especially if the color of their skin is a little bit darker than mine, or if they happen to speak in an accent, or for any reason that they care to give or not give at all. So I think Trump understands the stakes of this election perhaps better than anyone else. If Democrats win control of the House, and with James Tallarico as the 51st vote, the Senate as well, if they have that subpoena power to get to the bottom of the Epstein files, to connect the dots on the Trump crime family and all of the corruption that is being run out of the White House, to uncover things that we can't probably even begin to imagine right now, he may have immunity thanks to the Roberts Court, but I don't know that his family, his cabinet, the other oligarchs will. So this, for anyone who's saying that Trump doesn't care about the midterms and because his name's not on the ballot, he doesn't care if Republicans win, total bullshit. This guy understands the stakes. Therefore, he asked Texas to redraw 5 congressional districts to remove the Democrats representing the people who chose them as their public servants, to replace them by Republicans, doing the same in other states as well. This attack on mail-in voting, this taking the voting file from states like Texas. Our Governor Greg Abbott, only too happy to oblige. He gave all of our private, personal, confidential information to the Trump administration. And you and I both know that that administration is going to use that voter file to begin to attempt to purge voters who are lawful U.S. citizens, should enjoy every reasonable right to participate in free and fair elections, but because of this scheme, will be forced to prove their right. And we also know that some are just going to say, you know what, the hell with this. I was already uncertain about voting, or I was worried about how this was going to turn out, or I didn't want to get my hopes lifted and my heart broken again. And now they say that I have to prove my ability to vote in this election. Fuck it, I'm not going to do it. So all of this and more is coming our way. So therefore, and I know this is the spirit of what you all do, we've got to be even tougher, and we've got to work even harder. And we've got to get out there and bring more new voters into the electorate. We've got to stay in touch with them. We've got to turn them out. We've got to help them when they confront this voter suppression and voter intimidation, which will be coming full force in states like mine here in Texas. So it's going to be tough, and we should be clear-eyed about it. But I also believe that with the right attitude and the right work, and with enough of us coming at it, we can overcome this challenge, just as this country's overcome even bigger ones before. So not going to be easy, but we can do this.
Well, I want to talk about the way in which we're overcoming that challenge, because Texas, along with Arizona and Georgia, are, I think, the 3 big successes over the last decade in Democratic politics. And that's largely because folks like you and Stacey Abrams, and in Arizona, a slew of folks, built organizing infrastructure that listened to people and built a relationship with them year round. I want to give you your flowers for that, man, because I think you're a big part of why we're seeing Texas in play in the ways it is. And I just want to give you a chance to talk about your organization, Powered by People, and what you're up to in Texas.
Yeah, you know what? You're absolutely right about all of the volunteers. There are thousands of us across the state who, your viewers may not know this, but in Texas, you cannot register to vote online in the year of our Lord 2026. You can't get automatic voter registration. You can't do same-day voter registration. You have to drive or walk or take the bus down to the county courthouse, make an appointment with the county registrar, or you have to encounter a certified volunteer deputy registrar who has passed the litmus test at the local county. And that registrar can only register you if you both live in the same county. There's 254 counties in Texas. So these Powered by People volunteers get that volunteer deputy registration certification. They go out and they meet these future voters where they are, on college campuses, outside of high schools, at concerts, clubs, churches, wherever we can find people. And not only do we bring them onto the rolls, but we also personally stay in touch with that voter to answer their questions, to help them should they be purged by the governor or by the Department of Homeland Security or whoever they tell us is in charge next of the voter file, and then to nudge them until we can confirm that they have cast that ballot. We ran this program in 2024, and young people who turned out in Texas at a rate of about 37%, the young people who came through our program turned out at a rate of over 79%. And it just follows common sense. If someone's helping you out, if you have a personal connection with the person who registered you to vote, and if that person is also kind of bugging you or nudging you or reminding you, hey, it's time to vote, there's a much better chance that you're actually going to get that done than if you didn't have any of those things. So Powered by People is comprised of folks all over Texas and all over America, because we also have roles for those who cannot be there in person to stay in touch with those voters that we meet and that we register, to ensure that we answer their questions and turn them out. And in addition, and this is really, really big, there's a huge coalition here in Texas that has worked to fill every position on the ballot with a Democrat for the first time since 1972. So 150 state House races, there's 150 Democrats running for the first time. 38 congressional races, there's 38 Democrats running. 16 state Senate races that are contested, 16 Democrats running. And then on down to county judge, county commissioner, justice of the peace, etc. And as you all can probably imagine, not only does that give us better odds of winning some of these individual races, but these folks who are running in Waco, Texas, in Far East Texas, in the Panhandle, in South Texas, they may or may not win their races, but they are going to bring in net new Democratic voters that James Tallarico or Gina Hinojosa, who's running for governor, otherwise would not be able to reach or turn out. So it's kind of reverse coattails. All these really brave people whose names you'll never know, who are putting their names out there, who are putting their families out there, their friends, everything they've got to make sure that, yes, they have a shot at winning, but that we win in Texas for the first time since 1988, which was the last year a Democrat won, Lloyd Benson, for the U.S. Senate. I think we can do it in 2026.
Let's go. And Miles, before you get to your question, I'm just going to say for everyone watching in the chat, I just put the link for volunteering with Powered by the People. So it has both the link to volunteer if you're in person or if you're remote. So that link is in there if anyone's interested in volunteering with Powered by People.
It sounds like, Xander, it's easier for me to go start my own country than it is to register to vote in Texas, which is incredibly frustrating. And I got to say,
I've tried that in Texas too.
Yeah. I so admire that you are doing this. I mean, this is the real work. You know, this is the real work. And you deal with this. We deal with this. You know, people come out and they're like, you're doing, this is a self-aggrandizing effort. Are you kidding me? Beto O'Rourke could be off, Jared Kushner style, building a multi-billion-dollar investment fund, and he's working his ass off to make sure people are able to vote in a state that really wants to make sure that certain people cannot vote. And on that front, my friend, I want to hone in on something that you said earlier, which is how much this election matters to Donald Trump. There is no midterm election that has ever mattered more to a president of the United States because he thinks his life and his livelihood and his future depends on it. Because they do. He is worried about spending the rest of his life in prison. You don't believe me? Maggie Haberman just reported that in her new book, Regime Change, that was the reason Trump and his associates believe he ran for office a second time, was to stay out of prison. He thinks if the Democrats win the House and maybe the Senate, that the gig is up for him. They're going to start the investigations. They're going to pave the pathway into the federal penitentiary for Donald Trump. And so we have been saying here that one of the antidotes is that we've got to make the election too big to rig. What you guys are doing, massive voter turnout. But I want to talk about the back end of that, because if these bad things happen, if he is able to successfully use the U.S. Postal Service to pick and choose which mail-in ballots get delivered to be counted, which is my biggest worry here, then what does the after election look like if there are irregularities and outright instances of federal corruption? What do we need to be potentially prepared for as a country?
It's a great question. And just to take it to its logical conclusion, if we fail, if we don't meet the moment, if we are found wanting in these midterms, my belief is that this is over. And, I'll never stop fighting. I'll never stop doing everything that I can, but I can't look you in the eye and tell you that there's a scenario where we get our country back, where we have a democracy, where this slide into authoritarianism and fascism isn't completed under Trump, and that a Republican-controlled Congress doesn't roll out the royal red carpet for either a Trump, third term, or his designated successor, whether it's his son-in-law, his son, Rubio, JD, whoever. We just won't be in a government of, by, and for the people anymore. And I think everything that we have seen so far this year is fucked up and corrupt and disgusting and cruel and violent as it has been, is but a pale preview of what you are going to see going forward if we lose. Those are the stakes for us. I described the stakes for Trump earlier, and I think you're right Miles. I think it's prison. I think it's corruption unveiled. I think it's a complete drubbing in 2028 for not just Trump, but the MAGA movement and the Republican Party, which have become one. So there's something that you said that I want to seize on, and that is this. Trump told the New York Times, I wish I'd asked the National Guard to seize the ballot boxes in 2020. It is a admission that is what he's likely to do, or that's on the table, at least for him. We need to be so organized, so vocal, so loud, so visible. We need to be winning so clearly that when that illegal order comes down the line, that member of the Guard says, you know what? I know this is wrong, and I know that the American people are with me. I know that there will be hell to pay from the president or maybe my higher ups in the chain of command, but I'm going to do the right thing. And Lincoln has this great line. He talks about the power of the presidency, the courts, the legislature, and he says, beyond all of that is the power of public sentiment. With it, everything is possible. Without it, nothing can be done. Paraphrasing right there. And so public sentiment is everything. It's what you are doing right now. So registering is important. Voting is important. But getting out there in the street and protesting is important. Sharing this podcast and video with your friends and family, regardless of their persuasion, so that they understand what is happening in this country and can get active and mobilize. And one of the things I like about you all is it's not just complaining or pointing out what is going wrong in this country, but giving people avenues to act. And we believe in Powered by People that action is the antidote to despair and the key to victory. I feel so much better when I've spent the entire day in the 105-degree El Paso sun, meeting complete strangers, getting them registered, staying in touch with them. At the end of that day, that beer tastes so much better. My life is so much more fulfilling than if I had just stayed at home and said, holy shit, we're never going to make it. This is awful. What are we going to do? I hope somebody will ride to our rescue. No one's coming. There is no cavalry. It is on all of us doing all we can with what we have, wherever we happen to be, including, yes, here in Texas. So, Miles, your point is well taken. Make this as big as possible. This election too big to fail. The leads that we see in our candidates, including James Tallarico, too big to question on election night. And if they try to, which they might very well do, to steal those ballot boxes, it's not unprecedented in American history, then there has to be such a public protest and uprising that there's no choice but for Trump to relent, concede, and for things to play out in our favor. That's the task before us.
Xander, before you jump in, I was just going to say, it made me think, there's the keto diet. Like if there was a Beto diet, it sounds like the Beto diet is 105-degree temperatures and beer and pro-democracy work. And it's not approved by the Surgeon General, but that's the diet we all need to be on right now, is getting out there, working our butts off to save democracy. And you get a little reward on the back end if you want to.
That's right. 100%. Beto, I was talking to our friend Mondale Robinson from Black Male Voter Project yesterday. It's funny, today you've brought up that turnout number, how it increased with those college kids by double. I think you said from 38% to in the mid 70s. We talk about low propensity voters in this space, like those unlikely to turn out. But really, I think your work proves we have underinvested in voters, that if you put the investment into them, to your point, like give them a friend that's nagging them, that's reminding them. Most of us, this is not their job. It's not their job to turn out vote. They're busy with their life. So give them infrastructure. You're doing great work around that front. A lot of our other friends, as I mentioned, Mondale Robinson, other organizers I know across the country. What's it going to take for the Democratic Party to invest in that type of community organizing? Not their commercials, real relational organizing that stays in touch with people throughout the year, builds a real relationship with them, and then the Democratic Party can fall into being the party that reflects those priorities. Why haven't we seen that yet from the Democratic Party, and what's it going to take?
Man, this is the question of the hour, and it's the question I asked myself as we came into Trump's second midterm. As you all know, I ran for Senate in Trump's first midterm in 2018. And we ran a great campaign, not because of the candidate, not because of the party, just the people who were part of it. And it was hundreds of thousands of people who were part of it, made all the difference. We picked up, this is nuts to think about, but we picked up 500,000 Republican voters, people who voted for Greg Abbott for governor in 2018 and split their ticket and voted for me for U.S. Senate. Wow. We won hardcore Democrats. And in Xander, excellent point. We ran people, we won people who were not low propensity voters. I don't know what the fuck that means. We won people who were people who'd never been invested in. No one had ever asked them to vote. No one had ever knocked on their doors. No one had ever given them the time of day or listened to them, shown up in their town or their precinct or their neighborhood and said, hey, what's going on here? How can we help? Do you want to work together? Do you want to be part of this thing? I mean, it took 2 years. It took me 2 years to travel to 254 counties and meet with all those people and listen to all those people and bring all those people in. And yet we still came up short, 2.5 points under Ted Cruz, though below us, James Tallarico won an upset victory for the state house. Colin Allred did the same against Pete Sessions for Congress, and on down the line. It was really transformative for Texas. So here we are in the second midterm, right? And you've got an even better candidate in James Tallarico, and I really mean it. This guy is special, generational talent. I mean, I don't know what the right descriptor is, but this has not happened before in Texas. He's appealing to Republicans, to independents. He's energizing Democrats. But I fear if there's not something else, then perhaps we end up in the same place, close but no cigar. So I think this program that we have of not just meeting people where they are, getting them on the rolls, registering them, and then patting them on the back and saying, good luck, I hope you go out there and vote. But instead, and this takes a lot of effort and labor and time, personally staying in touch with that voter. Not, Powered by People doesn't stay in touch with them. The Tallarico campaign doesn't. The DNC and the TDP, they're not staying. It's the person who met you on that campus, that you met face to face, eyeball to eyeball, in the flesh. When the fuck does that happen in modern life anymore? That person who made that in-person impact on you is the person calling you up or sending you a text message. Hey, Xander, just want to make sure that you got your voter registration card from the Secretary of State. It's been 30 days. Hasn't arrived yet? Let me call them for you and see if we can track that thing down. That is the thing that I think has been missing. When I ran for governor in 22, check this out. 9 million Texans who were registered to vote did not cast a ballot. And on the ballot was abortion access in a state that had the most obscene ban in the country, with no exception for rape, incest, the life of the mother. On the ballot was 19 kids and their 2 amazing teachers who were killed, slaughtered in Uvalde at Robb Elementary, and no law has changed to make it any less likely that it will happen to any other kid. That happened that same year in 2022. On the ballot was $7.25 an hour minimum wage. On the ballot was the lowest ability to see a doctor or fill your prescription in the US, meaning more people are dying of shit like diabetes in Texas than anywhere else in America. All that stuff matters to everyone. No one is okay with this, and yet 9 million people still didn't vote. When asked by the political scientists, the number one reason they gave was that no one asked them to vote. And you guys and I, this is our life. We live and breathe this stuff. We're on top of this. But if you're working a $7.25 an hour job, you're not working one of them. You're working 2 of them or 3 of them. If you're raising your kids or taking care of your elderly parents, or life happens, right? And you get busy and you don't have the luxury to follow this stuff, you may not vote. And so you add that to this extreme regime of voter suppression and voter intimidation, and you get the otherwise inexplicable, which is, how the hell do you get Ted Cruz and Greg Abbott and Ken Paxton? Is that what Texas is? And Xander, you know this from firsthand experience. This is not Texas. Texas is this incredibly bold, beautiful state of amazing people who want everything but what we've got in our government right now. But we've got to help them, and we've got to be there for them. And that's the work that we do, Empowered by People.
Well, a final question for you, my friend. I'm going to bundle a couple because we had a number of our Defiance.org members and viewers asking questions. Sunil did, and Betsy5231 and others. I'm going to combine a few of them. Sunil says, how do we get your message, Beto, across to folks who are sitting on their hands and navel gazing in this moment, the it's business as usual crowd that needs to understand what you said earlier, which is that we shouldn't be planning for what happens if the election is stolen. We got to get it right before something like that happens. We have to have it be too big to rig. That's one question. And then Betsy has a more specific suggestion, which is, should all of us democracy warriors just register as independents so they don't know whether to disenfranchise us? All sorts of things like that are going through people's minds. But I especially want to get your take, my friend, on the first one. How do we grab people by the shoulders and wake them up?
Yeah, I think we've got to get this message out. And Xander, you asked us about the Democratic Party earlier, and I don't know that I gave you a straight answer. I mean, the Texas Democrats are having their convention this week in Corpus Christi, and I want it to be successful. I know there's going to be great speeches and hopefully wonderful plans to organize. I know we spend a shit ton on social media and digital ads and all these other wonderful things that frankly may or may not work. I don't know. What I do know is that if you will get out there and be with people in person, you can literally count the number of folks that you registered and brought into the electorate. So you can give speeches about expanding the electorate, or you can go expand the electorate. You can stay in touch with those people and know for yourself that you're connected with them, that you're answering their questions, that you're going to turn them out to vote. It's the only way we're going to get there. It's not messaging, apologies to anyone who thinks that's it. It's not autopsies. It's not who the chair is or who the chair isn't. I mean, those things are important for sure in some ways, but it's the work. It's the work. It's the work. It's the only thing that matters. And so everyone must find a way to get out there and do that work. It is, again, action is the antidote to despair. It's the key to victory. It's our only way out and through this is doing the work. And Powered by People survives based on volunteers. I'm one of the volunteers. We also survive based on donations, and we're grateful to everyone who's donated. But having said that, donations aren't going to get us there. You cannot, this isn't the medieval Catholic Church where you can give $25 and now you're absolved of any responsibility for what happens in November. Give the $25 to whomever you want to give it to whatever candidate or cause, but then get out there and give 20 hours a week, 10 hours a week. Can you give 2 hours a week? I know you can. And so we got to hold each other accountable. We got to do the work. And if we do, we can overcome the challenges that are before us.
That's right, my friend. Well, we're going to take you up on all of that. We're going to help in all the ways we can. And Xander, as we were sitting here talking, I was thinking one of those projects that we have planned on launching in July is maybe something we should be talking about with our friend here on the back end. So we can chat about that. And I've got great ideas for t-shirts that we should produce together. So Beto, if it's the folks who are only going to give $25, I've got some great t-shirt ideas from this conversation that hopefully can translate into the people who are going out there and doing the work. Instead of bar crawls, ballot crawls is maybe what we should be doing this fall as we head towards the midterm elections. Thank you so much, my friend, for everything you do. Can you remind folks one more time where they can follow your work and how they can sign up?
Yeah, join us at poweredxpeople.org. You can sign up to volunteer, and it really does not matter where you are in the country or really where you are around the world. If you want to help out, we'll put you to work.
Beto O'Rourke, he does not stop fighting. This guy's relentless. Thank you, my friend, for everything you do. We'll see you out there on the battlefield.
Gracias. Thank you all.
Xander, we now go to our final segment of the day and every day, which is who is joining the Defiance? Anyone else joining? Well,
it usually is.
Yeah, we're gonna need a bigger boat. We're gonna need a bigger boat because people keep joining. And today's member that is joining the Defiance is actually someone we're familiar with in her costume. If you attended the State of the Swamp event that we held in February, she is known as Amphifa, a pink member of the Frog Brigade. But we want to welcome her in human form as Nadine Saylor, who is no stranger to defying Donald Trump. Saylor came to the United States 40 years ago, and in 2019 decided she had had enough and began using her retirement fund to travel the country, protesting and standing up against Donald Trump's autocratic tendencies. Her most recent stop, the cheer team. While Trump has been struggling in his constant battle with the swampy green algae infesting his American flag blue reflecting pool, as you all have seen, Saylor saw this as the perfect opportunity to twist the knife and cheer for the winning side. Let's take a look.
Let's go, Algie! Let's go! Algie 1, fascist regime 0. Algie's smarter than MAGA. Algie's smarter than MAGA. Algie is doing good today, honey. Algie, everybody's proud of you. You are single-handedly doing more to fight fascism than any American has. Algie, let's go! 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 Let's go, Algie, let's go!
Okay, if you're listening on podcast and you didn't see the video, she and her friends are going around the reflecting pool and cheering on the algae. I loved that comment that the algae is doing more to fight fascism than many Americans. However, Xander, this cheer squad came to the absolute dismay of MAGA bootlicker Caroline Leavitt, the White House spokesperson, who said this, quote, "These deranged leftists in algae costumes, what does that even mean? Only the Democrats could hate beautifying our nation's capital and making it a symbol of pride again." Yeah, Caroline, because nothing fills Americans with pride quite like a historic pool I can't even see the bottom of. Leave it to the Republicans to get offended over a cheerleading frog. I got to tell you, Xander, when Caroline Leavitt made that comment, it was another one of those examples of, oh, they're so close to getting it. Like they're so close to getting it, but they don't quite get it, right?
It's too bad this wasn't timed up with State of the Swamp. It's too bad the algae growth and State of the Swamp weren't in sync a little bit more. Oh man. Well, it's great to see her. If you remember, Miles, she was who I interviewed just by happenstance when I was doing the live broadcast from the Hill of the Frogs movie. She was just the first person I grabbed. And then we learned, who she was and her presence in DC. And I think since then, the Portland Frog Brigade, post State of the Swamp, has been working directly with her to build a DC Frog Brigade that's since been stood up.
That is right, and I hope that that wider brigade is spending more time out there at the reflecting pool. We were almost going to deploy them on the 4th of July in Washington D.C. in mass, and we were so excited about teaming with them that we moved it up to a rebuttal event to the State of the Union. But now, Xander, I'm kind of wishing we'd brought them out for the 4th because they could have just completely surrounded the reflecting pool. But
we might have to join their party. I'm sure they're going to be busy on the 4th doing something. We just got to check in.
Perhaps they still will. Well, look, I want to encourage folks to join us tomorrow. I know you hear me say this all the time. Wednesdays are when we do our weekly mission brief. That's when we announce actions we are taking to combat Trump's abuses of power, to fight back against the corruption, real stuff that we're doing. And tomorrow, it's going to tie directly into what we were talking about in this show. What we are announcing tomorrow is going to be one of our centerpiece efforts to do that thing that I asked Beto O'Rourke about moments ago, which is to grab people by the shoulders and wake them up. We got a big idea. We've got a big effort. We're going to announce it tomorrow. And if you are a Defiance.org member, you're going to get to be a part of this in a very, very real way. If you are not, go sign up. Go sign up at Defiance.org. You can sign up to get our updates for free, or you could become a member to actually contribute to these real world actions every single week to fight Donald Trump's corruption. I'm really excited about that one, Xander. I struggle every time not to scoop us by announcing things before we're ready to announce them. But tomorrow, we've got some great folks on the program to do exactly that.
Totally. Before we go, I'm going to screw up this metaphor at some point, but
good. I love it. I love it when you do. I got to keep a running list of your bad metaphors.
Do it right. This is why I partner with you, though. You've got a great control over the English language, so you clean it up sometimes on the back end. Beto was talking about how much the volunteers mattered in his effort.
Yeah.
And if you've been involved in community organizing work or supported it, you know sometimes from afar, a constellation looks like a star. You might see Stacey Abrams and see that there's 2 million people that her organizations are organizing to turn out and vote, or Beto O'Rourke in Texas. But then when you zoom in, you see it's a constellation of all these little stars that are organizing their 10 people. Our democracy thrives on that reality, that 10 people are grabbing people by the shoulder, just like you, grabbing their friends, their family, unlikely friends and family that might not turn out, not because they hate the way things are, but maybe they're just disengaged. They're underinvested in, they're under-contacted. That is how elections are won and lost, if we have folks doing that. And so there is no star that saves us. There's no Beto that saves us. Beto, though, might inspire a bunch of us to be one of those stars in that constellation, to go grab our 10 friends. If I had Neil deGrasse voice, I would be using it right now to really foot stomp this metaphor. But that was the point I wanted to make, that there is no, other than folks that inspire us all to get out and do that duty, there's no hero that's going to save us from this moment. It is just all of us grabbing 10, 20, 30 people and just checking in on them, hearing them out, and making sure they turn out when they need to turn out.
Hell yes, my friend. Too big to rig. The Too Big to Rig coalition is going to remain our focus, so that the constellation of stars that Xander is working on with Neil deGrasse Tyson will orbit the future in ways. See, already lost the plot. Already lost the plot.
Dang, I thought it was pretty good. I got through it better than I thought I would.
No. I'm with you, my friend. We're going to do this. We're going to do this, folks. I mean, if you were with us since the top of the program, then you heard the courts are fighting back. Look, if these old dudes, some of them are gals, but a lot of them are real old dudes in black robes, can show up in boring ass conference rooms and courtrooms around America and lay the smackdown on this administration, then you can too. And you should be able to do it even harder than them, because they're individuals. You can pull together a mass of people to go out and defend our democracy. And that's what we're going to be doing. So we've got some great partnerships that we have lined up going through this summer to make sure that we do our part to keep this election secure, to make it too big to rig. So join us for the first of those announcements tomorrow on Defiance Daily. In the meantime, Xander, as we always say to our friends, stay loud, stay brave, and stay together, folks. We'll see you tomorrow.